All rights reserved. We reserve all rights. We need to talk about the Urbano Monte's 1587 planisphere map and clear up many misconceptions and false beliefs about it in the name of diligence and a lesson in confirmation bias and pareidolia, the perception of a meaningful pattern where none actually exists. Both the Flat Earth community and I myself, in previous films years ago, have speculated that Urbano Monte had mapped out a giant ring of huge unknown continents around our known and recognizable Earth, and have speculated they are extra lands being hidden from us by those who manufacture our fake history and false reality of the realm we actually live in. Now, I have the map in ultra high definition and can zoom in and finally read a lot of the actual text in plain old world Italian, and I was wrong. So we need to set the record straight. It is a glorious old world map, an enormous 10 feet by 10 feet wide made in several sheets, even showing world leaders in 1587, like the King of Poland, the Emperor of Turkey, Montezuma, the King of Mexico and the Western Indies, and even the King of Spain and the Indies. But it becomes clear when you can actually read it that it's more of a mariner's map and even a territorial map for newly discovered lands and islands at the time. Just like when you look at an old atlas at the state of Illinois, for example, and they give you a larger detailed blow-up of Chicago down in the corner, totally out of proportion with the rest of the map of Illinois. That's what Urbano Monte has done with his map, but since nobody could read the low-definition scans of the map, and he didn't come right out and say, "Hey dummy, this is what these are," and he scattered them in a circle around the map, not even close to where they geographically are in reality, people are falsely mistaking these island blow-ups as mysterious giant hidden continents. One of the easiest to recognize is this one, Australia. Though it is blown up in size way out of proportion to the rest of the Earth, like Chicago is on the Illinois map, it's at least in the right place. There's India, there's Sri Lanka, there's Southeast Asia, there's the Indonesian Isles, and there's Australia. Just like on Gleason's Flat Earth map, there's India, there's Sri Lanka, there's Southeast Asia, there's the Indonesian Isles, and there's Australia. Or, for the Globies, there's the southern tip of India, there's Sri Lanka, there's Southeast Asia, there's the Indonesian Isles, and there's Australia. Somehow magically all taking up nearly half of the entire Earth on Google Earth, even though that entire area doesn't even take up 1/8 of the world on every other map of the world. For those who like to believe they live on the Google globe, that's your business, and you can believe what you want to via whatever mental gymnastics necessary to make that work for you. What throws people off, besides the enormous size, is that Urbano Monte named it Terra de Brasilia, land of Brasilia or Brazil, or Brasilia Rhino, which means the kingdom of Brasilia or Brazil, not Australia. But that is clearly not the Brazil we know today. For starters, Brazil is not an island. Secondly, at least at first glance, that does not look anything like that, because this is what we're told and shown on our maps that Australia has to look like in order to fatten and squeeze it onto a globe projection with shrinking longitude distances as you get further south. But when you compare that to the Gleason map of Australia, it's very obvious. Wikitardia tells us about the discovery of Australia that, although a theory of Portuguese discovery in the 1520s exists, it lacks definitive evidence, except for this Italian map from 1587. And not until 1606, 19 years after this Monte's map, did Dutch explorers make the first recorded European sightings of and first recorded landfalls on the Australian mainland. And even then, they only mapped out the whole western and northern coastlines, not the interior. So then explain this shit 19 years earlier, with not only the entire Australian coastline, but also the entire interior already mapped out. There's Australia's Lake Eyre, mapped right between its rounded Gulf of Carpentaria and pointed Joseph Bonaparte Gulf, just as seen mapped out exactly here today still. And there's Lake Disappointment, as my ex-wife calls me, right off the curve of Broome and 80 Mile Beach, just as still seen here today. Tasmania right there off the back south, just like on the Gleason map here and on the globe squeeze here. Coastal saltwater crocodiles and even marsupials, unique and indigenous to Australia only. He also shows Australia's southern hemisphere summer sun, our northern hemisphere's winter sun, traversing over the northern or inner part of Australia around the light green latitude circle of the Tropic of Capricorn, which he even clearly labels here, which we know for a fact the sun does, as seen here in the light blue-green arc crossing Australia on the Gleason map, and even here for the Globies, who need to pretend the sun follows the yellow path on December 21st instead of the orange path to make their sun times and angles work. But anyhow, all in all, leaving no doubt, this is an exaggerated blow-up map of Australia and not some secret hidden giant continent we don't know about. It's even more clear when we go across the realm to the bottom of South America, where Monte has drawn what is mistaken as another giant red-looking continent, very close beneath it. But we notice the very bottom tip of South America is totally missing from Monte's map. Once again, our good and accurate friends Google the Globe assure us South America is as tall as 3/4 or more of the entire Earth and as wide as 1/4 of the Earth. Okie dokie. Even though that's clearly impossible to be our reality, unless you're a very special kind of person. But even our most special friends agree there is supposed to be a bottom eastward-facing tip to South America. Not an elongated blunt horse hoof. Now that we can read his map in high definition, we see he labeled that land Terra del Fuego, the land of fire, which would be an incredibly silly and senseless name for cold and icy Antarctica, allegedly just beneath South America on the globe model, or even the ice wall just below South America on the Gleason map. But now we can read he also clearly labeled the Straits of Magellan, running between them, which is a known navigable sea route in southern Chile, separating mainland South America to the north and Tierra del Fuego archipelago to the south, just as Gleason shows here. So it's clear this, which Gleason calls Tierra del Fuego, is what Monte has blown up in enormous size to this, again, just like Chicago on the Illinois map. Nothing more, nothing less. Not a hidden, secret, giant city southwest of Illinois. That dark red line is the Straits of Magellan, and that big island below it on the right side, that's Isla Grande de, meaning the big island of Tierra del Fuego, the land of fire. Not a giant, secret, hidden continent so close to South America, 3 miles away, across the Straits of Magellan, that nobody noticed it from the shores or on their fishing trips or flights over it to Antarctica or the ice wall. But what is interesting is that Gleason has Tierra del Fuego mapped running due east-west along a latitude circle perpendicular to South America, itself coming down north to southwest longitude. Monte also has it drawn east-west as well, along a latitude ring and perpendicular to South America. But we can't say for sure because that may just be where there was room on the map to draw it bigger around the map. But our accurate friends at Google, who think South America takes up almost half of the Earth by itself, have it curving more north to southeast to fit into their ever-shrinking longitude squeeze conundrum at the very south of their globe model. Anyway, to Terra del Fuego's immediate east, very close to it and drawn wrapping south underneath it, is Terra de Vista, meaning land of sight, but it gets quickly cut off on the right and doesn't continue into Monte's next section of the map. It's obviously a blown-up map of Isla de los Estados, also immediately east of Terra del Fuego and wrapping south underneath it. They are clearly nearly identical matches to each other, so I'm guessing it's that island. Also, not a giant hidden, supersized continent suddenly cut off on its right at a map page break to never reveal the rest of itself. That would be silly and an incompetent map maker, and clearly Urbano Monte was genius and neither of those. There is 0 point in covering the other 4 blown-up islands around the Monte's map. You are welcome to do so yourself, but logic already tells us they too are just blow-ups of smaller islands in other seas and other locations, which are listed behind them, as well as who ruled them. Like this island, ruled by the Roman Imperatore, or Holy Roman Emperor of 1587, who was named Rudolph II from 1576 to 1612, who Monte nailed on his map as a dead ringer for each other. So he wasn't just a genius cartographer, but clearly a genius cartoon portrait artist on top. There are plenty of other anomalies on this map that spit in the face of history and are perceived reality, like a Panama Canal already there 326 years before it was built, or was it redug out, or the ginormous island of Palawan, southeast of Cambodia and Vietnam, and northeast of Borneo, which is now totally gone, and just the small islands of the South Philippines to the little tiny Palau island of the same name sticking up out of the ocean. But that's for another study. This isn't to say that there isn't any merit to the many other maps and sources claiming there may indeed be hidden lands outside or inside the ice wall, or even in the Gaylobe's vast Pacific Ocean, which beer Googles claim somehow magically takes up more than half of our world. Either way, kept secret from us by the controllers who hid Palau and the original Panama Canal. It's only to show that this Urbano Monte map clearly and provably needs to be excluded from that list when mentioning any such topic as possible other giant hidden lands. My greatest lesson learned? They say a picture says 1,000 words, but if a guy takes the time to write 1,000 actual words over that picture, for God's sake, Steve, he did it for a reason. Take the time to make sure you can get a copy where you can actually read those words and translate them if they are in another language. La terra è piatta.